I don't know if it's only me, but I've always found the nerve innervations of the tongue pretty confusing. It may be because there are a lot of nerves associated with it, and the anterior two-thirds of the tongue and the posterior one-third of the tongue are supplied by two different nerves. And even in the anterior two-thirds of the tongue, general sensation and taste sensation itself are supplied by two different nerves. Motor innervations is by different nerve. There are so it gets me a bit confusing. But I found a way to recall or memorize it in a pretty easy way. All you need to remember is that the sensory innervations is by some cranial nerve that is odd numbered, and the motor innervation is only by one cranial nerve, so it is evenly distributed throughout the tongue. And luckily, the motor innervation is by a even numbered cranial nerve. So what is that nerve? We'll find that out. First, let's talk about the general anatomy of the tongue. This is my own little version of the tongue. Tongue is divided into anterior two-third part and posterior one-third part. And our mnemonics lies in this one-third and two-third. One in one-third stands for one sensory nerve. Two in two-third stands for two sensory nerves. So there is only one sensory innervations to the posterior one-third of the tongue, and there are two sensory innervations to the anterior two-third of the tongue. Okay, so let's first find out what is that one sensory innervations to the posterior one-third of the tongue. To find that out, just imagine there is a mirror in front of the P, and think about what the mirror image of P would have looked like. It would have definitely looked like something like this, and that is 9. That means the sensory innervations to the posterior one-third of the tongue is going to be by the ninth cranial nerve, and the ninth cranial nerve is glossopharyngeal, of course, and that what supplies the sensory innervations to the posterior one-third of the tongue. Now, what are the sensory innervations to the anterior two-third of the tongue? We have already discussed that the sensory innervation is going to be by some odd number cranial nerve, and since anterior two-third is ahead or anterior of posterior part, so these odd number cranial nerves are also going to be ahead of posterior nerve, that is cranial nerve 9. So what are the odd number cranial nerves ahead of hind? Yeah, 5 and 7. They are ahead of hind, 5 and 7, and luckily the sensory innervations to anterior two-third of the tongue is by the cranial nerve 5 and cranial nerve 7. The general sensation and the taste sensations is by two different nerves. One of 5 and 7 carries the general sensation, and one of 5 and 7 carries the taste sensations. So which nerve carries the taste sensations? Let's find that out first. To find that out, just rotate that 7 upside down. It looks something like T, and we know that T stands for taste. That means the taste sensations from the anterior two-third of the tongue is carried by the 7th cranial nerve, that is facial nerve. And if the taste sensation is carried by the 7th nerve, that means the general sensation of touch, pain and temperature, that is carried by the 5th cranial nerve. But the 5th cranial nerve is trigeminal nerve. That means it has 3 branches. Which branch of the trigeminal nerve carries the general sensation? The cheat again lies in the two-third. 2 in two-third stands for the two different sensory innervations. What does 3 stands for? Well, maybe that's the third branch. Yes, that is true. It's the third branch of the trigeminal nerve that carries the general sensation from anterior two-third of the tongue. Now, what carries the motor sensation from the whole tongue? We have already discussed that the motor sensation from the whole tongue is only by the one nerve, that is evenly numbered. And how do we get an even number? When we add two odd number. So what are two odd numbers here? 5 and 7. Yes, right. So let's add them up and we'll get 12. So that means the motor innervations to the whole tongue is by the 12th cranial nerve, that is hypoglossus. So general sensation, taste sensations, and the motor sensations are by different nerves. Motor sensations to the whole tongue is by the 12th cranial nerve, except palatoglossus, which is supplied by vagus nerve. Okay, this is the summary slide. You can look at it if you want to. Practice it once again by yourself. Look at the video once again if you need to. And that's that.